As you know, we're new to OMERACT. And we have started working almost 3 years ago. We have a lot of results already to share with you. And hopefully we're gonna start the session with some results on the work that have been done. Then we're gonna divide into group, and we need your help to help us sort some of the domain that we have identified so far. Welcome as well everyone who's joining us as well on Zoom. So just a little bit of background. I would like to go over the co-chairs for this session. Vibeke, Lee, Julian, Marta, Martin, Eric, Ian, and myself. I would like to definitely give a great welcome to our patient research partner, Maya Desai, and the fellow for this session, Wills Nielsen. So our working group includes 160 members so far, representing 5 continents and more than 25 countries. So I'm gonna stop in here and pass it on to Wills.
Welcome, Dan, find a chair.
Okay, thank you, Zahi, and hi, everyone. Here is our agenda for this Lupus SIG session. So there will be 3 parts today. First, we'll be going over the domain generation projects that we have been doing over the past 2 years. Then we'll go over some of the domains that have come out of these projects. And lastly, we will split into our breakout groups to discuss these domains in regards to their consideration for the core domain set. So I'm going to start off with our projects that we've been doing. So we've done 5 projects. We're continuing to do some of them. We are conducting a scoping literature review. And to generate domains from qualitative research, we are conducting 4 separate projects, which include a qualitative lupus research scoping review, patient interviews, focus groups, and a domain survey, many of which you might have participated in. And I'll be going through each of these individually in the next few slides. Oh, sorry, I forgot to press the button. Here's the projects laid out again. So for starting with our scoping review, we looked at all lupus clinical trials and systematic reviews since 2010. We found over 4,000 articles. Screening reduced this to 500, and we've been extracting all the domains and measurement instruments and trying to capture the definitions as well. And we hope to complete all of this by June this year. Next, we have our qualitative literature review, which we searched for all qualitative lupus research in the past 10 years. We identified over 142 studies, and screening reduced this to 48. We have completed the data extraction and captured any definitions here, and this project has been completed already. Oh, I'm sorry. It's confusing me to do it on the computer and with the hand. Okay, so this is our scoping qualitative review slide. Now onto our patient interviews. So we did patient interviews with 22 lupus patients from the Toronto Lupus Clinic, representing a multi-ethnic background. And we recorded these interviews and transcribed them. We asked them how lupus impacts their lives. These transcripts were thematically coded, and the analysis of these has already been completed. And next we have our focus groups, which are currently in process. We've already conducted 5 focus groups, and we are holding more. We are asking patients on how lupus impacts them, and the transcripts from these are being developed and thematically coded, and we hope to complete this one also by June this year. Yes, so we are following OMERACT's requirement for geographic representation of at least 3 continents with 10 from each continent. We are exceeding that. We have 4 continents represented. We're just trying to reach 10 from at least 3. And we might even have 5 continents represented now, actually, I think. Unfortunately, we do have to have all English-speaking, functional in English, but many of them, it's not their first language. So we have required that because we're not able to hold that otherwise. Yes? Yes. Well, Toronto is a very diverse city, many immigrants we have coming, and we're recruiting from the Toronto Lupus Clinic, so we have a whole mix of age. I can't remember exactly what our full demographic is.
So I can add here, in general, the ethnical background represented at the Toronto Clinic, 50% white Caucasian, 20% black, 15 Asian, and 15 as other different ethnical background.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and lastly, we have our domain survey. And here we administered this to 100 patients through the Toronto Lupus Clinic, as well as 144 other stakeholders, which many of you participated in. And we asked, we presented all responders with 18 known domains of lupus and asked them to rate the importance of these domains, as well as asking them to suggest any additional domains to add to this list. We captured any definitions that were provided, and again, we hope for the analysis of all of these results to be completed by June. So now we're going to move on to results and go over the preliminary list of domains. But first, our valued patient research partner, Maya, is going to come up and speak quickly about the previous 1998 core domain set in lupus and its research agenda. I can press it for you.
Yeah, press it for me. Okay. Next one. Next one, please. All right. Hi, everyone. So I'll be going over the domains that were included in the 1998 Lupus core domain set and research agenda, and briefly outline the need to update the update for the Lupus core domain set. So the 1998 core domain set had 5 domains, which included disease activity, damage, health-related quality of life, adverse events, and economic costs. So although all of these domains remain important, lupus is a very complex disease, and many other important domains that need to be considered. So now if we look at the 1998 research agenda, there were another 9 domains that were also considered. So these include disease severity, fatigue, comorbidities, psychosocial factors, disability, work status, patient global assessment of disease activity, physician global assessment of disease activity, and serologies. Yeah. So many of these domains have evolved over time with new definitions or concepts and have even been separated for being too broad in their original form. Furthermore, there are many additional domains that remain important to patients, such as pain, cognitive function, sleep, fertility, access to healthcare, patient knowledge and equity, and many more. In recent years, especially with OMERACT, there have been many evolving push for broader and meaningful patient and stakeholder participation. So it is for these reasons that these efforts to update the lupus core domain sets are super crucial now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Maya. So now I will be going over the domains generated beyond what you've already seen from the 1998 Lupus core domain set and research agenda. For each project here, I'm only going to list additional new domains because there are many repeating domains between the projects, and I will begin with the scoping literature review. So starting with the scoping literature review, here we had 24 additional domains. Looking at the manifestations core area, we had pain intensity, swollen body, swollen joints, biomarkers, and flares. There were many life impact domains, which are pain impact, sleep, anxiety, depression, stress, body image, role participation, appetite and diet, pregnancy, fertility, and cognitive function. We found 3 death or lifespan domains, being mortality, COVID, and adherence to medication. And for societal and resource use, we had medication cost, medical care cost, inadequate care, and relationship with healthcare team, access to care, and support. So now I'll be going over the qualitative literature review additional domains that we have found. And here we had 17 additional domains. In the manifestations area, we had weakness, fever, stiffness, diagnosis and confirmation of disease, control over disease and vulnerability. There were again many life impact domains, which are emotional health and mood disorders, relationship impact, impact on others and burden to others, lifestyle impact, self-monitoring, intimacy, planning and prioritizing, guilt, and sexuality. In death or lifespan, there was discrimination and stigma. And lastly, for silent resource use, we had non-medical costs such as lotion and alternative medicine costs. So now we'll go through the patient interview additional domains. And here we had 5 more additional domains in the life impact core area, which are self-esteem, time consumption, coping, resilience and optimism, lack of understanding by others, and misunderstood invisible disease. And now we have our focus group domains. In the manifestation area, we had dizziness. In life impact, we had limited energy, sedentary, life adjusted around sun exposure, satisfaction, isolation, functional ability, and mobility. And then in the death and lifespan core area, we had use of steroids, including demonstrated tapering, information and knowledge of SLE, burden of disease, and treatment burden. And lastly, we have our domain survey, which was an online survey that was completed by many of you. And here, already beyond what we found 3 more additional domains, which are growth impact in the life impact core area. And in the death and lifespan core area, we found gender transitioning and tolerability. And so now we're going to start to split into our breakout groups, but first I'll be going over what we'll be doing in each breakout group. So to start, each group will review the 1998 core domain set and the continued importance of those domains. Next, each group will be presented with a unique list of domains, so each group has a different set, and a subset of the preliminary domains we've just gone through. And we will be asking you to first discuss the domains and see if any changes to any domains are needed, such as combining ones that are too specific, splitting up ones that are too broad, or alter any domains that you see needing change. And then lastly, once that's done, we would like you to select with your breakout group whether each domain should be kept for the Delphi, whether it requires further discussion, or whether it should be removed from consideration. And again, none of these decisions are final decisions. These are just helping us to lower our number of domains for the Delphi. So here we have the instructions for the Delphi, for the breakout groups that I will leave up that your breakout group leaders will be leading you through. First going through the 1998 core domains, then we'll be going over the list of domains you'll be provided with, and lastly, deciding on if you have time, what the outcome of that domain should be right now in just your group's opinion.
Thank you, Wills. And looking at the number, I can see we will be able easily to divide into 3 groups. So we would like some people to join table 3, what's over there, 5. And in the back, I think it's number, I can see from here, 7 maybe? No, beyond 7, the table beyond you guys. And at each, 14, thank you. At each table, we're gonna have a facilitator and reporter. So work within your table, and at the end, the reporters will bring the summary here and we'll discuss the results again. Okay, we're gonna start with the first group, and we're gonna hear from Yonis, the report.
Okay, so we had very interesting discussions in our group. We started with the core domains that were identified at the meeting in 1998. So we started discussing around those, and we felt that health quality of life was very inclusive as a term. It felt like an umbrella term, so more like an area rather than a domain. So that could be substituted with sub-items probably to become domains rather than keeping health quality of life. The same applied for disease activity. This also felt an area rather than a domain. Damage, again, it is composed by, let's say, an index that contains certain items. It also felt like very inclusive. It could be substituted by other domains. And adverse events, of course, should be kept, and economic cost should be kept. Then an important point that everybody felt is important is to add clarity to the definitions for each domain. Then remove items that are rather contextual. It is important to have an exercise after this meeting and always ask the question, okay, this domain into quotation marks popped up in our search, but is it really something for a drug? Is it an outcome for a drug? So an important question to always ask. Yeah, and we got a lot of feedback, actually, a lot of things to collapse into one common item. And yeah, I think I should keep it brief, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ioannis. Al?
Okay, so, yes. So we started, the discussion started vigorously with the health-related quality of life outcomes for the core domains. The argument was that it may be too broad, and it's also a broader issue for OMERACT. Every working group just says, quality of life, and it ends up being a placeholder, and we should be speciating specific domains within it. I think the issue, though, is that we do have instruments like the SF-36, for example, that are broad, that have individual domains built into it, and I think that was the intent, was that we can collect them broadly and then be able to do subset analyses. And then also collecting individual domains within health-related quality of life outcomes is going to maybe redundant with the broader instruments also. So we ended up keeping it. We had no other discussions about the other core domains. In terms of the other domains that we decided to keep, participation, we wanted to change to role participation to just participation as a whole, because this will include social, leisure, and physical. And then relationship impact, we wanted to keep along with coping, but rename that as self-management. Limited energy, but rename it to fatigue. Intimacy, sexuality, functional ability and mobility, but rename that to physical function. And then for the other ones, pain intensity, pain impact, swollen body, swollen joints, and stiffness and weakness, we wanted to keep, but rename a couple of things, swollen body to appearance, and then kind of just add more broadly to swollen joints, musculoskeletal impact. The things that we decided to remove were going to be impact on others, burden to others, resilience, optimism, inadequate care to access to care, diagnosis, confirmation of disease, growth impact, gender transitioning. The one that we wanted to discuss a little bit more was work status, largely because we were trying to decide whether or not this was going to be included within participation. And also there's some bias and discriminatory aspects here, along with potential misinterpretation by the respondent who may work from home, but may not actually connect the two. So this is something we wanted to be able to discuss more in more detail.
Okay. Thank you, Al. Lee?
So Wills has asked me to fill in, and we started out with the original 1998, what's now gone, the original 1998 outcomes, and basically we killed several of them, which is really quite interesting. So the group, as we discussed it, and again, as it relates to prospective trials, as a core outcome set for every single trial. This does not mean that some of the trials may not be measuring some of these things, but this is what they wanted to keep in and keep out. Keep in disease activity. Keep in damage, but what damage? Okay, they want disease-related damage. They don't necessarily want drug-related damage, and we have to figure out how to measure that, because you're always measuring drug-related damage as an adverse event. So is there something unique that you have to think about with lupus? They want, obviously, adverse events, because adverse events is in all of them, and health-related quality of life. Now, that was actually quite an interesting discussion about health-related quality of life. But nonetheless, they want to keep it in, and they have no interest, at least it seemed, to keep in economic cost as a core outcome measure for a randomized controlled trial. Several other ones, for example, some of the patients wanted pregnancy, the ability to get pregnant or whatever. Let's be honest, there is no way in hell that there's ever going to be a randomized clinical trial, certainly in the world we know today, that's going to give a new drug to a patient who's pregnant. That's just not happening. It may not be right, but it's just not going to happen. So having that be in the core set is probably not a good idea. And on the other hand, there was the question of fertility. Well, you know, that can be measured, and there could be amenorrhea induced by some therapeutics. And I reminded everybody about filgotinib, which is a JAK inhibitor, which is not approved in the United States because it has a problem with spermatogenesis. So therefore, fertility is not an unreasonable to think about, but should it be in every trial? And that's another issue that has to be resolved. Flare, what does that mean? And as everybody here who's actually been around for some time in OMERACT knows the problems associated with flare. What does that mean? We had a discussion about physician global and patient global. I hate the physician global. I think it's useless, but you know, there are a lot of people that like it, and a lot of lupus people think that they know better than the patients about how they respond. I've actually been told this over and over again. So in fact, a patient global is critical. Maybe we'll leave in the physician global depending on how many are aggressive about that. Then there were issues regarding thinking issues about being able to carry out tasks and various other things. And clearly, well, we need to come up with some overriding aspect. Well, exactly, cognitive issues, brain fog, maybe. Anyway, this needs to be worked out. And because we were at the table with Peter Merkel, of course, he immediately pointed us to the fact that we could make subdomains, and like he did for vasculitis. And that's appropriate, so we need to think about that. And it's possible that we would come up with a list of things specifically for lupus of generalities. Benelista and the interferon product are basically targeting skin and joints. But what about everything else? And how we have to say that, well, that's only more recently. And Vibeke, just so that you know, the division published a paper in lupus that showed that Benelista does not work for lupus if you have more than 2 grams of loss of protein a day, because you pee out the drug. Yeah, so I don't know whether or not Benelista works in lupus nephritis, whether it's approved or not. Yes?
What about another reported not just
Such as?
LFA Pro or SLA2 as they several.
So those are. So that's an instrument.
So that's an instrument.
And that's, yes, we're going to consider that, but those are not domains. They measure health-related quality of life, and we're not making any statement about what should be that health-related quality of life measure. So I think it's fine, but that's an instrument, and we will go to that. So basically, those were the discussions. I turned in all the sheets of paper, and I would invite everybody to participate in the Delphi, because that's going to be really critical to be able to decrease the numbers of domains that would be measured. I do think that we're probably not going to be able to get down a core domain set for lupus to less than 7 core domains. Although we'd like to try, I don't think that's going to happen. Say it again?
Up to 9, we're okay.
Yeah, well, guess what? This is probably going to be 22 domains and not 10.
Wills, any urgent feedback from the people on Zoom? Can we make them?
No, we can't.
So Zoom is actually watching us right now. So Yashar just shared their group some points they made. So I'm just going to read what he wrote. Our group agreed with points made by the others thus far, including that damage as a core measure should be limited to lupus-related damage, not from drugs, not from example drugs. We also felt that disease severity should be removed for consideration as it seems less clinically relevant to include historical disease severity rather than current activity as a core measure, and we felt that comorbidities and disability could be added pending further discussion on how this is defined. We didn't get much farther than that due to the lack of time, but hopefully we have a chance to discuss the other proposed core domain additions at another time.
We thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I think we're done for today, and we'll follow up with all of you, but please, we need your help to complete the Delphi once we reach out to you.